Dr. Lisa Martinez stared at the empty cage and felt her stomach drop. Another one was gone. The small dragon hatchling had been there last night when she did her final check. Now only a few golden scales remained on the soft bedding. That makes 23, she whispered to herself, running her hands through her dark hair. For 3 weeks, the baby dragons had been disappearing from the research station on planet Kepler 442b. No one could explain how or why. The dragons were not ordinary animals. Even as babies, they were smart and could speak to people with their minds. The adult dragons on the planet were huge, as big as small spaceships. The babies were supposed to be safe in the research station until they grew bigger. Lisa walked through the white halls of the station, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. She needed to tell Colonel Jake Peterson about the latest missing hatchling. He would not be happy. The Galactic Council had sent their team here to study and protect these rare creatures. Now they were failing badly. She found Colonel Peterson in his office looking at reports on his computer screen. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. When Lisa knocked on his door, he looked up with a frown. "Another one?" he asked before she could speak. Lisa nodded. "The golden one from Cage 7. It was there at midnight during my last check." Colonel Peterson slammed his hand on his desk. "This is impossible. We have the best security in the galaxy. Motion sensors, energy shields, locked doors. How can baby dragons just vanish into thin air?" "I don't know," Lisa said quietly. "The security cameras show nothing. The energy shields around their cages never turned off. There are no signs of anyone breaking in." The colonel stood up and walked to his window. Outside, they could see the purple sky of the alien planet. Strange plants grew in the distance, and sometimes they could spot the huge adult dragons flying far away. "The mining companies are already asking questions," Colonel Peterson said. "They want permission to dig up this planet for its valuable metals. If we cannot keep a few baby dragons safe, they will say we failed our mission." Lisa knew he was right. The Consolidated Mining Corporation had been waiting for any excuse to get rid of the dragons. The creatures were sitting on some of the richest mineral deposits in the galaxy. If the research station could not protect them, the council might decide the dragons should be moved somewhere else. "What about Dr. Cooper's theory?" Lisa asked. "Alan thinks the baby dragons might be teleporting somehow." Colonel Peterson shook his head. "We scanned their brains last week. Baby dragons cannot teleport. They are too young. That ability does not develop until they are at least 5 years old." Lisa had been thinking about this problem for days. Someone or something was taking the baby dragons. But who? And how were they getting past all the security? "Have you questioned all the station staff?" she asked. "Security Chief Dana Rivers talked to everyone twice," the colonel replied. "Nobody saw anything strange. Nobody heard anything unusual." Lisa thought about the 40 people who worked on the research station. Scientists, security guards, technicians, cooks, and maintenance workers. All of them had been checked and double-checked before being allowed to work with the dragons. "What about the maintenance staff?" she asked. "They have access to all parts of the station." Dana questioned them too. The head mechanic, Tony Walsh, said he spends all his time in the lower levels fixing machines. He barely comes up to the main floors. Lisa had met Tony Walsh a few times. He was a big, quiet man from Earth who kept their life support systems running. He did not talk much and seemed to prefer working alone with his tools and machines. She could not imagine him stealing baby dragons. "The adult dragons are getting worried," Lisa said, changing the subject. Dr. Kim reported more telepathic activity from the planet's surface. "The parent dragons are trying to communicate something, but the messages are not clear." Colonel Peterson rubbed his forehead. "Can you understand what they are saying?" "Not really. Dragon telepathy is very strong. It gives most humans headaches if we try to listen for too long. Dr. Kim can only handle a few minutes at a time before he needs to rest." This was one of the biggest problems with studying the dragons. Their mental voices were so powerful that most humans could not hear them clearly. It was like trying to listen to someone shouting during a thunderstorm. Lisa left the colonel's office feeling more worried than before. She walked through the station, looking for any clues she might have missed. The research levels were quiet. Most of the other scientists were either sleeping or working in their labs. She decided to check the security room. Maybe the cameras had caught something that everyone else had missed. Security Chief Dana Rivers was there looking at multiple screens showing different parts of the station. "Any luck finding our missing babies?" Dana asked without looking away from the screens. "Nothing yet. Can you show me the recordings from last night? Dana pulled up the files on her computer. They watched the recording from Cage 7. At 11:47 p.m., the golden baby dragon was sleeping peacefully in its cage. The energy shield was working perfectly, showing as a blue glow around the cage walls. At 12:15 a.m., Lisa appeared on screen to do her nightly check. The baby dragon was still there. At 6 a.m., when the morning shift started, the cage was empty. There, Dana said, pointing at the screen. 7 hours and the dragon just vanished. No movement, no energy readings, nothing. Lisa watched the recording again. She noticed something strange. Dana, look at the timestamps. There is a gap. Dana frowned and checked the computer. You are right. The recording jumps from 2:33 a.m. to 4:41 a.m. That is over 2 hours missing. Equipment failure? Lisa asked. Maybe. Or someone who knows how to hack our security systems. This was the first real clue they had found. Someone with technical knowledge had disabled the security cameras for 2 hours. That narrowed down the list of suspects to people who understood the station's computer systems. As Lisa walked back to her quarters to get some sleep, she thought about the missing time in the recordings. It had to be someone working on the station, someone who knew their security well enough to turn off cameras and avoid the motion sensors. But who would want to steal baby dragons? And more importantly, what were they doing with them? The questions kept her awake as she lay in her bed, listening to the quiet hum of the station's machines. Somewhere in this place, 23 baby dragons were hidden. She was determined to find them before any more disappeared. 3 days later, Dr. Lisa Martinez was drinking coffee in the station cafeteria when she noticed something odd. Tony Walsh, the chief mechanic, was sitting alone at a corner table. He looked different somehow. Usually, Tony seemed tired and grumpy, especially in the mornings. Today, he looked relaxed and well-rested. Lisa had been watching the station staff more carefully since discovering the gap in the security recordings. Someone with technical skills was behind the disappearances. Tony certainly had those skills. He knew every inch of the station's computer and mechanical systems. She walked over to his table. Mind if I sit down? Tony looked up from his breakfast and nodded. Sure, Doc. How are those missing baby dragons doing? Any luck finding them? His voice sounded genuinely concerned, but Lisa noticed he did not seem surprised by the question. Most people on the station were talking about little else these days. No luck yet, she replied, studying his face. You work in the maintenance levels. Have you seen or heard anything unusual down there? Tony shook his head and took another bite of his scrambled eggs. Nope, just the usual machine noises and humming computers. Why do you ask? Someone with technical knowledge is involved. The security cameras were disabled for over 2 hours during the last disappearance. Tony raised his eyebrows. Really? That is pretty sophisticated. Whoever did it knows our systems very well. Lisa noticed that Tony's hands were very clean for someone who worked with tools and machinery all day. Usually mechanics had grease or oil stains that were hard to wash off completely. Tony's hands looked like he had scrubbed them very carefully. Over the next few days, Lisa started paying more attention to the maintenance staff. She asked Security Chief Dana Rivers to check their work schedules and supply requests. You might be onto something, Dana said, showing Lisa a computer screen. Look at this. Tony Walsh has been ordering some strange supplies over the past 3 weeks. Lisa read the list. Extra heating elements, soft fabric materials, and large amounts of high-protein nutrient paste. The nutrient paste was the same food they fed to the baby dragons. What did he say when you asked about these orders? Lisa wanted to know. He claimed he was working on personal projects during his free time, said he was building some kind of heating system for his quarters. Lisa thought about this. Tony's quarters were in the main residential section, same as everyone else. The station's climate control kept all living areas at a comfortable temperature. Why would he need extra heating? The next morning, Lisa decided to follow Tony after his work shift ended. She waited near the maintenance entrance until she saw him leave the main engineering section. Instead of going to his quarters, Tony went deeper into the station's lower levels. Lisa followed at a distance, being careful to stay quiet. The lower levels were usually empty except for automated systems and storage areas. Tony walked through several corridors before disappearing through a door marked Environmental Processing. Lisa waited a few minutes, then crept closer to the door. She could hear Tony's voice coming from inside, but it sounded like he was having a conversation. She pressed her ear against the door and listened carefully. I know you are hungry, Tony's voice said gently. Here, this should help you feel better. Another voice responded, but it was not human. It sounded like soft chirping and small squeaking noises. Lisa's heart started beating faster. Those were the sounds baby dragons made. She heard Tony laugh quietly. Yes, I know it is warm down here. That is the point. You little ones need heat to grow properly. More chirping sounds came from inside the room. Lisa could not believe what she was hearing. Tony was definitely talking to something that was not human. Lisa backed away from the door carefully. She needed to report this to Colonel Peterson right away, but as she turned to leave, she bumped into a metal pipe. The clang echoed through the corridor. The voices inside the room stopped suddenly. Lisa held her breath and pressed herself against the wall. After a few seconds, the door opened and Tony peered out. His eyes met hers across the corridor. Dr. Martinez, he said calmly. What brings you down to the maintenance levels? Lisa tried to think of a good excuse, but her mind was blank. I was looking for you. We have some questions about the station's systems. Tony studied her face for a moment. He seemed to be deciding something. Questions about what exactly? The heating systems. We noticed you ordered extra heating equipment. Tony stepped out into the corridor and closed the door behind him. Those are for personal use, like I told Security Chief Rivers. Lisa could hear faint chirping sounds coming from behind the closed door. Tony heard them too, and his expression changed. He looked worried now. Dr. Martinez, he said quietly. What you think you heard, maybe we should talk privately. Before Lisa could respond, her communication device beeped. It was an emergency message from the research levels. Another baby dragon had disappeared during the night. Lisa looked at Tony's face and saw something she had not expected. He looked genuinely surprised and upset by the news. Another one is missing? He asked. When did this happen? Last night between midnight and 6 a.m., Lisa replied, watching his reaction carefully. Tony frowned and seemed to be thinking hard about something. That does not make sense, he said quietly, almost to himself. What does not make sense? Tony looked at her for a long moment, then sighed deeply. Dr. Martinez, I think you and I need to have a serious conversation. But not here. Meet me in conference room C in 1 hour. Come alone. Why should I trust you? Lisa asked. Because, Tony said, I think I know what is really happening to those baby dragons, and you are not going to believe it. Lisa spent the next hour trying to decide what to do. Should she call Colonel Peterson and Security Chief Rivers? Should she go to the meeting alone as Tony requested? The chirping sounds she had heard behind that door kept playing in her mind. When she arrived at conference room C, Tony was already there waiting for her. He looked nervous and kept running his hands through his hair. Before I tell you anything, he said, I need you to promise that you will listen to the whole story before you make any judgments. Lisa sat down across from him. I promise to listen, but if you have been taking those baby dragons, I have not been taking them, Tony interrupted. They have been coming to me. And Dr. Martinez, that is a very different thing entirely. Tony Walsh looked across the conference table at Dr. Lisa Martinez and took a deep breath. 3 weeks ago, I was working late in the environmental processing room. It was around 2 a.m, and I heard this sound. Like a baby crying, but not quite human. Lisa leaned forward in her chair. What did you do? At first, I thought it was just the machines making noise. You know how these old systems can sound sometimes. But then I heard it again and it sounded scared. Really scared. Tony paused and rubbed his forehead. I looked around the room and found a baby dragon hiding behind one of the heating units. It was tiny, maybe the size of a house cat with beautiful silver scales. It was shaking and making these soft chirping sounds. The first missing dragon, Lisa said quietly. Yeah. But here is the thing, Dr. Martinez. It did not look like it was trying to escape. It looked like it was looking for something. Or someone. Tony stood up and walked to the window. Outside, they could see the purple landscape of the alien planet. I tried to catch it at first to bring it back to the research levels. But every time I got close, it would move away. Not running exactly, just staying out of reach. Lisa watched his face carefully. Tony seemed genuinely troubled by his memories. Then something strange happened, he continued. I started hearing a voice in my head. Very quiet, like someone whispering from far away. The baby dragon was trying to talk to me. What did it say? Tony turned back to face her. It said it was scared and lonely. The other humans made too much noise in its head. But with me, it could think clearly. Lisa felt her scientific training kicking in. Tony, most humans cannot hear dragon telepathy clearly. It is too strong and causes headaches or confusion. How are you able to understand it? I do not know, Tony admitted. I have never been good with that psychic stuff. Back in school, they tested me and said I had something called telepathic resistance. I figured that meant I could not hear mental voices at all. Lisa's eyes widened. She remembered reading about telepathic resistance in her xenobiology studies. It was a rare human trait, found in maybe one person out of every 1,000. Instead of making someone immune to psychic contact, it acted like a filter, reducing overwhelming mental signals to manageable levels. Tony, she said excitedly, telepathic resistance does not block mental communication. It regulates it. You are not immune to dragon telepathy. You are the perfect receiver for it. Tony looked confused. What does that mean? It means that while dragon thoughts give most humans terrible headaches, your brain can process them clearly. To the baby dragons, you must seem like the only human who can truly understand them. Tony sat back down heavily. That would explain a lot. Over the past 3 weeks, more baby dragons started showing up in my work areas. They seemed to find me no matter where I was in the maintenance levels. How many? Lisa asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. 23, Tony said quietly. They all came to me one by one. Each one was scared and confused when it arrived. They kept saying the same thing, that the other humans made too much noise in their heads, but I was quiet and safe. Lisa felt a mixture of amazement and relief. The baby dragons had not been kidnapped. They had been seeking help from the one human who could communicate with them properly. Where are they now? She asked. Tony hesitated. Promise me you will not call security until you see them yourself. I think you need to understand what is really happening here. Lisa nodded. I promise. Tony led her through the station's corridors to the maintenance levels. They walked deeper into the lower sections than Lisa had ever been before. The halls were narrower here, and the air hummed with the sound of life support systems. They stopped at the environmental processing room where Lisa had heard the voices earlier. Tony opened the door and gestured for her to enter. The room had been transformed. Extra heating units warmed the air to a comfortable temperature. Soft fabric materials created cozy nesting areas in the corners, and curled up throughout the space were 23 baby dragons in various colors: gold, silver, deep blue, emerald green, and rich purple. The baby dragons looked up when Tony and Lisa entered. Their large, intelligent eyes reflected the warm light from the heating units. Several of them made soft chirping sounds and moved toward Tony. Hey there, little ones, Tony said gently, kneeling down. A small golden dragon climbed onto his shoulder, while 2 others rubbed against his arms like cats. I brought someone to meet you. Dr. Martinez studies dragons like you. Lisa stared in wonder as the baby dragons gathered around Tony. They clearly trusted him completely. Some were playing together, others were napping in the warm fabric nests, and a few were eating from bowls of nutrient paste. They are not prisoners, Tony explained as a blue dragon settled in his lap. The door is never locked. They come and go as they want, but they always come back here to sleep and eat. Lisa knelt down carefully and extended her hand toward a small silver dragon. It approached cautiously and sniffed her fingers, then made a soft trilling sound. Why did not you report this? Lisa asked. Everyone has been worried sick. Tony's expression grew serious. Because I was afraid of what would happen to them. These little ones are not just hiding, Dr. Martinez, they are learning and teaching. What do you mean? Tony pointed to a corner of the room where several baby dragons were playing with pieces of machinery. Watch them, Lisa observed as the dragons manipulated complex mechanical parts with their small claws. They seemed to understand exactly how the pieces fit together, solving puzzles that would challenge most adult humans. They have been showing me things, Tony continued. How energy flows through systems, how to fix problems I could never solve before. It is like they see patterns that humans miss. As if to demonstrate, one of the dragons chirped at Tony and pointed to a broken heating unit in the corner. Tony walked over and examined it. With 3 baby dragons perched on his shoulders and arms, following their guidance, he quickly identified and fixed a problem that had been puzzling the maintenance staff for weeks. Incredible, Lisa whispered. Tony, do you realize what this means? This is the first successful human-dragon communication we have ever achieved. The baby dragons are not just seeking comfort from you, they are forming a partnership. Tony nodded. That is what I was afraid of. If Colonel Peterson and the military people find out, they will want to study it. Turn it into some kind of weapon or tool. These little ones trust me. I do not want to see them locked up in laboratories. Lisa understood his concern, but she also saw the bigger picture. Tony, this could change everything. If humans and dragons can work together like this, imagine what we could accomplish. Before Tony could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the station. A voice came over the communication system. All personnel to emergency stations. Unidentified ships approaching the planet. Tony and Lisa looked at each other with worry. The baby dragons around them started making distressed chirping sounds, picking up on the tension. We need to get back to the main levels, Lisa said. But Tony, we have to tell Colonel Peterson about this. Tony gathered several of the smaller dragons in his arms. I am not leaving them alone during an emergency. As they hurried through the corridors, Lisa realized that their discovery was about to be tested in the worst possible way. Whatever was approaching the planet, they would face it with humanity's greatest secret walking beside them, a man who could speak with dragons. The command center was in chaos when Dr. Lisa Martinez and Tony Walsh arrived. Colonel Jake Peterson stood at the main display screen, watching 3 large ships descend toward the planet's surface. Security Chief Dana Rivers was coordinating defensive positions, while other staff members monitored communications equipment. Where have you two been? Colonel Peterson demanded when he saw them. Then his eyes widened as he noticed the baby dragons clinging to Tony's shoulders and arms. What in the name of... Colonel, we can explain, Lisa began, but she was interrupted by another voice. Well, it looks like our missing dragons have been found. Everyone turned to see Helen Brooks, a tall woman in an expensive business suit, walking into the command center. Behind her came 2 security guards wearing the uniforms of Consolidated Mining Corporation. Ms. Brooks, Colonel Peterson said stiffly, this is a restricted area. How did you get past our security? Helen smiled coldly. Your security clearance was revoked 30 minutes ago, Colonel. The Galactic Council has decided that this research station is failing in its mission to protect the dragons. Consolidated Mining Corporation is taking over this operation. Lisa felt her heart sink. This was exactly what she had feared would happen. The mining company had been looking for any excuse to claim the planet and its valuable resources. You cannot do this, Colonel Peterson protested. We have a legal mandate to study and protect these creatures. A mandate that you have clearly failed to uphold, Helen replied, pointing at Tony and the baby dragons. For weeks you reported that dragons were disappearing from your secure facilities. Now we find them in the hands of a maintenance worker. This proves that your security measures are inadequate. Tony stepped forward, the baby dragons chirping nervously around him. Lady, you do not understand what is happening here. Helen looked at him with disgust. I understand perfectly. You stole endangered alien creatures from their proper containment. That is a criminal offense under Galactic Council law. I did not steal them, Tony said firmly. They came to me because they needed help. Help? Helen laughed harshly. From an uneducated mechanic? These are valuable scientific specimens, not pets. The baby dragons on Tony's shoulders began making louder distress calls. Their telepathic voices reached every psychically sensitive person in the room, causing several staff members to wince and hold their heads. Make them stop that noise, Helen ordered. Sedate them if necessary. No, Tony said sharply. The baby dragons immediately quieted, sensing his protective anger. They are not making noise. They are trying to tell you something important. Helen gestured to her security guards. Remove those creatures from this person immediately. As the guards moved forward, something unexpected happened. The lights in the command center began to flicker, and every computer screen started displaying strange patterns of energy readings. Dr. Alan Cooper, who had been monitoring the equipment, called out in amazement. Colonel, you need to see this. The adult dragons on the planet are responding to the baby's distress calls. They are generating massive amounts of telepathic energy. Through the main window, everyone could see enormous shapes moving in the purple sky. The adult dragons, some as large as small spaceships, were circling the research station. Their telepathic voices created a harmonious but overwhelming chorus that made most of the humans in the room feel dizzy. Tony, Lisa said urgently, can you ask the babies to calm their parents? This much psychic energy could damage our equipment. Tony closed his eyes and seemed to concentrate. The baby dragons on his shoulders chirped softly, and gradually the telepathic noise from outside began to decrease. Helen Brooks watched this display with growing anger. This proves my point exactly. These creatures are too dangerous to be handled by civilian researchers. They need to be moved to a secure military facility where they can be properly contained. Contained? Tony asked, his voice rising. They are not weapons or tools. They are intelligent beings with families and feelings. Or feelings? Helen scoffed. They are animals. Valuable animals that could be worth billions if properly exploited. Lisa stepped between Helen and Tony. Ms. Brooks, what you are witnessing here is a breakthrough in interspecies communication. Tony has achieved something that scientists thought was impossible. He can actually talk to the dragons. Nonsense, Helen replied. Humans cannot communicate telepathically with dragons. The psychic energy levels are too high. Dr. Cooper looked up from his computer. Actually, she is right about that. But Tony seems to be an exception. Look at these brain scan readings. He showed them a display comparing Tony's brain activity to other humans when exposed to dragon telepathy. While most people showed signs of stress and confusion, Tony's patterns were calm and organized. Telepathic resistance, Lisa explained. Tony's brain can filter and process dragon thoughts without being overwhelmed. He is literally the perfect human translator for their species. Colonel Peterson studied the readings with interest. If this is true, then Tony and the baby dragons represent an incredible opportunity for peaceful contact between our species. Helen Brooks was not impressed. Opportunity? This is a security risk. If dragons can communicate with humans, they could share information about our technology and defenses. They could organize resistance against human expansion. Or, Lisa countered, they could share their knowledge and help us solve problems we cannot handle alone. Look at what Tony has accomplished in just 3 weeks. She gestured to Tony, who was calmly holding baby dragons while their massive parents circled overhead. The entire situation should have been terrifying, but Tony seemed completely at peace. The little ones have been teaching him about energy systems and mechanical engineering, Lisa continued. His repair work has improved dramatically. This is not just communication, it is collaboration. Helen's security guards were getting nervous as more adult dragons appeared in the sky. Some of the creatures were landing near the station, their massive forms visible through the windows. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Helen said. The dragons are becoming organized and aggressive. They could attack at any moment. Tony shook his head. They are not aggressive. They are protective. They know their babies are safe with me, but they can sense your hostility. As if to prove his point, one of the baby dragons in Tony's arms chirped softly. The adult dragons outside immediately backed away from the station, though they continued circling at a safer distance. Colonel Peterson looked at the display screen showing the mining corporation's ships. Ms. Brooks, your vessels are heavily armed. The dragons are responding to the threat you brought with you. We came prepared for any situation, Helen replied, including removing dangerous alien creatures by force if necessary. The baby dragons began making distressed sounds again, and Tony's expression grew angry. You are threatening children. Their parents can sense that. Lisa realized they were approaching a crisis point. If the mining corporation tried to take the baby dragons by force, the adult dragons would certainly attack to protect their young. The research station would be caught in the middle of an interspecies war. There has to be another solution, she said desperately. Tony, what are the dragons telling you? What do they want? Tony listened carefully to the soft chirping of the babies, his eyes closed in concentration. When he opened them again, his expression was troubled. They are asking why the humans with weapons want to take their children away from the safe place, he said quietly. They do not understand why some humans want to hurt them when other humans have been kind. Helen stepped forward impatiently. This conversation is over. Guards, secure those specimens immediately. But as the security guards moved toward Tony, every piece of electronic equipment in the command center suddenly stopped working. The lights went out, computers shut down, and even their communication devices went silent. Outside, the adult dragons had landed around the research station in a protective circle. Their telepathic voices created a harmonious song that seemed to resonate through the very walls of the building. In the darkness, Tony's voice was calm and steady. I do not think they are going to let you take their babies, lady. And honestly, neither am I. In the darkness of the command center, emergency power slowly flickered back to life. Red warning lights bathed everything in an eerie glow as backup systems came online. Colonel Jake Peterson's communication device crackled with urgent messages. Colonel, this is navigation. We have a massive solar storm approaching the planet. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. The radiation levels will be deadly for anyone not protected by our main shields. Lisa Martinez felt a chill of fear. Solar storms on Kepler 442b were incredibly dangerous due to the planet's unusual magnetic field. Without their main defensive shields, everyone on the research station would die from radiation poisoning. Helen Brooks grabbed Colonel Peterson's arm. Get your main power back online immediately. My ships need to evacuate before the storm hits. The Dragons shut down our power grid, Colonel Peterson replied grimly. We cannot restart the shields without their cooperation. Tony Walsh stood quietly in the center of the room. Baby dragons perched on his shoulders and arms. His eyes were closed, and he seemed to be listening to voices only he could hear. Tony, Lisa called softly. What are the dragons saying? Tony opened his eyes and looked around at the worried faces. The big ones outside know about the solar storm. They have been watching the sun's behavior for days. That is why they came to the station, to protect their babies. Can you ask them to restore our power? Colonel Peterson asked urgently. Tony shook his head. They will not trust the humans with weapons. The adult dragons think Helen and her guards are here to hurt their children. Helen's face flushed with anger. This is ridiculous. We are all going to die because of some animal's paranoia. They are not paranoid, Tony replied firmly. You came here with armed ships and threatened to take their babies away. From their point of view, you are the enemy. Dr. Alan Cooper was studying readings on his backup computer. Colonel, even if we get main power restored, our current shield configuration will not be strong enough. This storm is larger than anything in our records. Lisa looked at Tony with sudden inspiration. Tony, the dragons have been teaching you about energy systems. Do they understand our technology well enough to help strengthen the shields? Tony consulted with the baby dragons, who chirped and trilled in response to his unspoken questions. They say the station's shields work like their parents' natural energy barriers. But human technology and dragon abilities use energy differently. What does that mean? Colonel Peterson asked. It means, Tony said slowly, that if we combine human engineering with dragon power, we could create shields strong enough to protect not just the station, but the entire planet. Helen laughed bitterly. That is impossible. Human technology and alien abilities cannot be integrated like that. But Lisa was already thinking about the implications. Tony, the dragons have been sharing knowledge with you for weeks. You have been solving engineering problems that should have been impossible. What if this is exactly what they have been preparing you for? Outside, the adult dragons were making deep, resonant calls that seemed to shake the very foundations of the station. Tony listened carefully, then nodded. They want to try, he said, but only if the armed humans leave their children alone. Helen stepped forward aggressively. I am not leaving without those specimens. They are too valuable to... Her words were cut off as every person in the room suddenly heard a voice in their minds. It was deep, ancient, and filled with protective fury. Even Helen, who had no telepathic sensitivity, could hear the dragon's mental communication clearly. The small ones are not specimens. They are our children. The human Tony who listens has given them safety and kindness. Those who threaten our children will face our wrath. Several people in the room staggered from the force of the telepathic message. Helen's security guards dropped their weapons and held their heads in pain. Tony spoke aloud, presumably translating for the dragons. They say they have been waiting for centuries to find humans who could work with them instead of trying to control them. The babies chose me because I could hear their thoughts without being hurt by them. Lisa realized the profound significance of what was happening. This is not just about protecting the station from the solar storm. This is first contact between our species on a completely new level. Colonel Peterson made a decision that would change everything. Ms. Brooks, I am ordering you and your people to stand down. We are going to attempt a joint human-dragon defense of this planet. You do not have the authority, Helen protested. I have the authority to protect this research station and everyone on it, the colonel replied firmly. Guards escort Ms. Brooks and her team to quarters and keep them there until after the storm passes. As Helen and her security team were led away, Tony walked to the main control console. Baby dragons climbed down from his shoulders and began examining the complex machinery with obvious interest. They want to understand how our shield generators work, Tony explained. Once they learn our technology, their parents can enhance it with their natural abilities. What followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Tony, guided by the baby dragon's telepathic instructions, began modifying the station's shield generators. Adult dragons positioned themselves around the research station, their massive forms glowing with internal energy. Dr. Cooper monitored the process on his instruments. Incredible. The dragons are not just copying our technology, they are improving it. The energy efficiency is increasing by factors I have never seen before. Lisa watched in amazement as Tony worked alongside the baby dragons. His hands moved with impossible precision, guided by their shared understanding of energy patterns and mechanical systems. The baby dragons seemed to know exactly which components to adjust and how to optimize each connection. "Tony," she called, "how are you doing this? Some of these modifications should require years of advanced engineering training." Tony smiled without looking away from his work. "The little ones are teaching me as we go. They see patterns in energy flow that humans miss. It is like learning a new language, but instead of words, we are using mathematics and physics." Outside, the adult dragons had linked their minds together, creating a network of telepathic communication that spanned the entire planet. Their combined mental voices harmonized into something beautiful and powerful. Colonel Peterson received an update from his navigation team. "Colonel, the solar storm will hit in 90 minutes. Are the shield modifications working?" Tony stepped back from the control console, several baby dragons still perched on his arms. "They are ready. But this is not just about shields anymore." He gestured to the window where the adult dragons were glowing brighter than ever before. "The big dragons can channel and redirect solar energy. They are going to create a permanent protective barrier around the entire planet." "Permanent?" Lisa asked. Tony nodded. "The dragons have been looking for a world where they could settle safely and raise their families. If this works, Kepler 442b will become a true partnership between our species. Humans and dragons working together." The solar storm hit exactly as predicted, but instead of deadly radiation, the planet experienced something miraculous. The combined human-dragon shield system not only protected everyone from harm, it transformed the dangerous solar energy into a beautiful aurora that painted the sky in brilliant colors. Helen Brooks, watching from her quarters under guard, could hardly believe what she was seeing. The very creatures she had dismissed as valuable animals had just saved every human life on the planet. In the months that followed, the Galactic Council officially recognized Kepler 442b as the first human-dragon cooperation world. Tony Walsh became the first official human-dragon liaison, with his 23 baby dragon partners growing up to bridge the gap between two very different species. The Mining Consortium found their claims dismissed as the planet was declared a protected cooperation zone. Instead of strip mining the valuable minerals, humans and dragons worked together to develop sustainable extraction methods that benefited both species. Dr. Lisa Martinez established the galaxy's first interspecies research facility, where human scientists worked alongside dragon scholars to unlock secrets neither species could discover alone. The baby dragons, now adolescents, served as translators and teachers for other humans with telepathic resistance. Tony often told new students that being different was not about being broken. Sometimes, he explained, while a young dragon perched contentedly on his shoulder, being different meant being exactly what the universe needed. The dragons had waited centuries for a species that could complement their abilities without being overwhelmed by them. Humanity's combination of technological innovation and natural telepathic diversity made them perfect partners for creatures who thought in energy patterns and dreamed in mathematics. Together, they began to explore not just their shared world, but the infinite possibilities that opened when two different kinds of minds learned to work as one. The baby dragons who had once disappeared in fear had become the foundation of an alliance that would change the galaxy forever. And it all started with a gruff mechanic from Detroit who learned that sometimes the most important conversations happen without words, and the greatest discoveries come from simply listening to those who need to be heard.